Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. This is actually the second video that I have posted for today, and these two videos are interrelated, and I'll explain more about that as we go. So today I am participating with the Iron Crafter Challenge, which focuses on one crafty ingredient for our projects. And that is hosted by the Peace Craft Love Facebook group, and they invite anybody in the community to join in for this hop once a month. So let me show you what I've got going on. All right, I feel like in the last couple of times I've done these hops, I haven't done the ingredient justice. So this time I'm really gonna focus on the ingredient. So I have my bins pulled out of those supplies. And I've got these photos printed. Full disclosure, those are not my photos. I downloaded those from the internet because I didn't take any photos from this particular story. So I use the internet as my resource. All right, now I have this sun cut file here, and that is something I design and offer for free. So that is the other video, is showing you the release of the freebies that I do once a month, and the freebies that in particular I have going on for June. So as you can see here, I've got various parts and pieces to this cut file. Off on the right is a stash of embellishments that is a freebie printable. So if you want to see more about the freebies that I have going on, and this is why this is two videos, so that I don't waste your time with things you're not interested in, but you can click the link up in the corner or find the link down in the description if you are interested in these freebies. All right, as I'm going through my counterfeit kit for this month, I am selecting pattern papers that I think will work with this story. I've got the yellow sun rays going on, and I wanted to back that with a nice blue kind of sky color. I did debate for a while, but that's what I ended up going with. And you can see I've got some brads there. They're in the blue and yellow color scheme. So that is definitely a color scheme that I enjoy and appreciate. All right, I have separated out my buttons and brads into the few colors that I'm going to use on this layout. I am going to be adding pops of pink because my printables have pops of pink in there as well. So I want to incorporate that into this layout. And you'll see how I do that in a moment. But I want to fill in just kind of half of these sun rays with all of these little textural goodies so that it adds a lot of depth and dimension and texture to my little sunshine. And I'm going to start off with the bigger elements, which happens to be most of the buttons. And I want to be sure to kind of mix and match between the different sun rays because I don't have all matching buttons. I want to kind of distribute similar items of buttons around the different sun rays so that they're not all clumped up next to each other, and so that it provides interest across the spread. And then I have a couple of special brads that are shiny or metallic or something along those lines. So I want to distribute those out as well. I do have this little piece of cardstock that I folded up to act as a mat behind my piercing tool so that I can pierce holes to put those brads through. I always like to pierce holes first because trying to punch holes with a brad tends to go very badly. And if you've ever done it, you know what I mean. You can also see I have a little piece of tape on my sunshine, and that is taping into place the elements that I want to be sure to incorporate on that particular ray. I do use that tip as I'm working throughout this. This did take a little while because I had lots of bits and pieces, and I was moving them around a bit to try and figure out where I wanted everything to go so that I could distribute those pieces nicely and have a variety of interest across the layout. All right, here is where I am incorporating more of that pink. I'm going to create this zigzag pink piece as the backing to my sunshine, and I really like the contrast of the pink to the sun rays and the zigzag to the sun rays. I'm pretty happy with how that decision came out. It's not something I would have thought I would do ordinarily, but having these supplies sitting next to each other made it easy to pop these two things together. All right, and here is what my sunshine ray looks like when it is completed. I am happy. I did incorporate some blues and pinks into those buttons and brads to fill in the sun rays as well. And I really do like how having these three colors working together is looking. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get my title going on. Now you see those letters there. I will show you how I did those letters again in a moment. But I am going to spread out my 4 focal photos around the sun rays, and I had a couple of ideas as I was going with this, but I decided to turn these photos into pockets because this layout doesn't have a lot of good space for journaling, although I do have lots of tips and tricks that could make it work. But I want to say a lot about these photos, because especially since these photos were not my photos, they're internet photos, I want to really talk about the story behind them. So we had a staycation recently, and we went on some adventures, both to beloved places around town and to new places around town. So all of these photos have to do with one of the things we did on our staycation. And I want to highlight all of the elements to that story with these journaling cards that are from my printables. So I am creating a little tab with one of my favorite tab punch and some more papers from my counterfeit kit. And I am going to create these little pockets with my photos. Now I thought my journaling would fit just right behind my photos, but my photos were too small for that. So I am creating layers to these pockets. And I realized that I actually need to create a separate independent pocket, which we'll see more in a minute. It looks like I've cut to doing the letters in the meantime. So I pulled out a piece of watercolor paper that I experimented with for some other project. I keep a stack of these pieces in my scrap bin, and I'm going to use these to stamp out and then die cut out my title. I believe this is a Lawn Fawn stamp and cut set for the alphas. So I will link you up to that if I can figure it out. And here is how I do, because these die cuts are solid, you can't really see through them to line up the stamps. So I will pre-cut a template, and then I can line up my letters under that template to cut them out in the meantime. And then if you use tape to hold those die cuts in place, that works great to pop into the template and cut out. Hope that all makes sense, but using a lot of tape to keep all of these elements in place will help keep things from slipping and sliding as you die cut. Okay, if you have any questions on that, just let me know. I am moving on to finishing up all of my pockets because I did have to go through a process of trial and error. I kind of cut most of that out, but I am getting things adhered down, and I will show you a little bit more about these pockets in a moment. I did leave my sun loose at the edges so that I had the opportunity to tuck these pockets in, under, around, whatever, so that is why the sun is loose. Now I am going to go ahead and get my title going on there. I have these alphas that I cut out previously to go along with my counterfeit kit, and my whole title reads Busy, Busy Bees. So having these bee elements from my freebie printable kind of led to my title and how to tell a story of all of these busy photos all together. All right, let's talk a little bit more about these pockets. So I did mat my photos with 2 layers. One is just a solid color behind my photo and glued down straight. The second layer is a white border layer, and I only glued the edges so that would create the pocket part. And I did that because all of the bits and pieces on this layout would snag when I'm sliding that journaling card in and out. So I don't want that to be an issue. So with the backing to my pocket, it will have a smooth surface to slide on. Okay, now what I realized when I was putting my pocket on my layout is that it was going to cover up some of these elements, and both for bulk reasons and to not hide the goodies, I am going to move some of those elements around and just try and cover up the holes that are left behind from the brads with that. Now, I finally found my little squishy piercing mat. Foam is way better than a folded up cardstock, so I'm glad that I found that and was able to finish up this layout with that, because the cardstock was not working great. But in a pinch, if you don't have any foam piercing mat, you can always use that cardstock trick. All right, I am heading back to my title, and I am going to start embellishing this layout with some of the bits and pieces I have. And I'm going to put just a small amount of journaling that leads the viewer to open up those journaling pockets and pull out more of the journaling. I have masked off with some tape the area around the circle so that when I stamp my journaling lines, and I will press from underneath my project as well, because this is lumpy and bumpy, it can interfere with stamping. So giving it a press from behind helps you get better lines. Now, it doesn't need to be perfect in my book, and it's not, but it works well enough. And once you have your writing on there, nobody will really notice that. So here's what those lines look out like, and they sort of follow the curve, so I appreciate that. So the rest of this layout is about little embellishments. I am going to add one little cluster of embellishments to each photos, and these are mainly focused on the freebie printables that I designed for you this month, and you can catch the links again below to find those freebies. You could go look at the freebie reveal video that I did, which is the second video that I have coming out today. And I will put a link up in the corner and down in the show notes so you can catch that if you're interested. But I had fun creating these freebies and showing you some ideas of how to use them, and I hope you enjoy them and appreciate them as well. So with my little clusters, I am creating different elements with a circular element, an arrow element, and so on and so forth. So I like to mix and match my elements that way. And then I realized that while the sunshine is great to use for a staycation photo, we actually had quite a bit of rain on this trip. So clouds and rain, and so that played into the story. I wanted to make sure to get some of these cloud elements on here too, and finding a way to incorporate those into the layout without distracting from the other elements. I wasn't sure I could get it to work, but I feel like I did good. I feel like it came out good. And by just kind of tucking them around, and I did particularly tuck them around down in the bottom right corner. We had a trip to the zoo, and it started pouring on us at one point. And so I really did want to get these clouds on there. So putting that closer to the particular rainy part of our trip was important to me. Since we're going back to the Iron Crafter Challenge with our buttons and brads, I do want to incorporate some more of those elements onto my clusters. So I will add some brads into my clusters. I will use more buttons in my clusters to help just kind of tie everything together. I'm adding a few more bits and pieces around my title to get those things all tied together as well, and definitely mixing and matching the whole color scheme from this layout. Now, most of my brads are through layers that don't go all the way to the back of my layout, but these ones do. If you've ever had these things snag when you're sliding them in and out of a page protector, put a piece of tape on them, and that will keep them from snagging. All right, here's one more idea on using brads for you. You can always punch a row of holes and line them up to emphasize an element. That could be a whole line across your page, or here I'm just emphasizing a bit of an embellishment. So I wanted to zoom in a little bit on this idea so that you can see more ideas on how to use the Iron Crafter ingredient. Now, I did go back to my kit and pulled out some stars that I had punched out from another layout because I didn't have quite the elements that I wanted in my printables for this particular photo. So I got that on there, and I put a button as a center of that star cluster. So use those items in interesting and unexpected ways to embellish your layout. So I have got the Iron Crafter Challenge ingredient, big check mark on getting that featured on the layout this month, and I feel good about that since I have kept those items as more of a background photo in previous videos. All right, and here I just wanted to show you all of my journaling. I tend to be a very wordy person, so I got as much of the journaling to fit on those journaling cards as I could, and I could have even said more than that. But that gives you a look at all of the final elements of this layout, and I will leave you with a few close-up photos so you can see the highlights of all of the goodies that I have going on this layout. And I am super happy with this one. I hope it inspires you in some way. I want to thank you very much for watching today, and don't forget that this is a hop. Go check out and leave some love for all the other hoppers on this journey here. And I will be back next week with more crafty videos for you. Until then, have an artful day.